6.3 you have one topic, development of forest policy and tribals. This also overlaps with 9.1 history of administration of tribal areas then tribal policies. Policies, programs and schemes we will see in 9.1. So how various forest acts and policies have come into existence we can see. So before independence and after independence. So if you see before independence, that is during colonial rule, it all started with Dalhousie in 1855, who issued a memorandum on forest conservation, citing that slash and burn cultivation is destroying the forest. However, he emphasized on teak production that we already know. In 1865, first Forest Act was enacted, which curtailed the rights and privileges of forest people on their own land and forest. In 1878, another Forest Act was enacted, which made trespassing and grazing of cattle in forest area a punishable offence. Fines and penalties were imposed, even imprisonments were also made. In 1927, in 1994, a forest policy came into existence, which mentioned the forest administration sole purpose is like public benefit, and this also further curtailed the rights. In 1927, Indian Forest Act came into existence, which created All India Forest Service and State Forest Service officers, rangers, foresters and forest guards. So this created the forest administration. So these are the various policies and acts before independence. After independence, they almost continued on the lines of colonial administration only and acts and policies. So after independence, we have national forest policy in 1952. Then Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru has given tribal Panchsheel. He articulated these 5 principles between 1957 and 58, and presented these 5 principles in Verrier Elvin's book. So this is the time frame. Then Wildlife Protection Act, (1972). So which declared wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, etc. And then you have different committees like National Committee, Agriculture and Tribal Rights, (1976). Based on the recommendations of this particular committee, through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the forests were brought into concurrent list. Then you have National Committee, the view of rights and concessions of tribal people in 1980. And then B.K. Roy Burman's committee, in 1982. So the recommendations of B.K. Roy Burman's committee were introduced in New National Forest Policy in 1988, and then Forest Rights Act, Scheduled Tribes and other forest dwellers, recognition of scheduled tribes and other forest dwellers, Forest Rights Act in 2006. So in this particular thing we will see the eligibility, rights given, process of recognition of rights, gray areas and drawbacks. So what are these? We can see put the heading Development of Forest Policy and Tribals, History of Administration of Tribal Areas, Tribal Policies. You have taken down? Right. Hari Singh Committee in 1967. Hari Singh Committee in 1967 stated that %60 of the tribal population lives in forest and 40% live in the vicinity of, and 40% live in the vicinity of forest area. Forests play an important role in tribal way of living. They provide them food, clothing, shelter, cultural equipment, spiritual pleasures, and dictate their life from birth to death. These tribal people are therefore also called as Vanavasis, Vanajati, Vanaputra. Vanavasi, Vanajati, Vanaputra, etc. Next paragraph you write. Historically, through various acts and policies, the tribal rights in their own land and forest were not recognized properly. All these started after the advent of Britishers in 1855. Dalhousie issued a memorandum on forest conservation, citing concerns of forest destruction brought about by slash and burn cultivation. However, he emphasized on teak production, to be sent to teak production, to be sent to teak production, to be sent to shipbuilding industry in UK. Shipbuilding industry in UK. In 1865, through the first Forest Act, colonial administration regulated the activities of tribal people in their own land and forest. Through Forest Act 1878, through Forest Act 1878, even trespassing and grazing of cattle in forest area was made a punishable offense. Fines and imprisonments were levied. Fines and imprisonments were levied. In 1894, the first forest policy came into existence, which stated public purpose as the sole objective of forest administration. It further curtailed the rights and privileges of tribal people in their own land and forest. Indian Forest Act 1927 created a new forest administration, which is powerful and adequately protected by the law. It created All India Forest Service, All India Forest Service, All India Forest Service, State Forest Officers, State Forest Officers, Rangers, Rangers, Foresters, Foresters, and Forest Guards, and Forest Guards. So this is before independence. Next paragraph we can write. After independence, National Forest Policy 1952, National Forest Policy 1952 almost continued on the lines of British administration, acts and policies. British administration, acts and policies. It only provided few rights and privileges to the tribal people. During 1957-58, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru articulated 5 principles famously known as tribal Panchashil, which should form the backbone of tribal administration. The tribal Panchil, and then we have like other aspects like 3 things together: isolation, assimilation, and integration. We will be seeing in maybe a couple of days. So that Elvin Gurria debate and then Nehru's tribal Panchil, where we will elaborate all the 5 principles. Okay, but here this is enough. Continuation, you write continuation in the same point. To what extent, there only, tribal Panchil only, to what extent these principles have been followed remains to be a matter of great debate. Remains to be a matter of great debate. Next paragraph. Wildlife Protection Act 1972 declared certain areas as national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biospheres, wildlife sanctuaries, biospheres, tiger conservation, etc. Tiger conservation area, etc. This made hunting of certain animals and cutting of certain trees as a punishable offense. This act also regulated grazing of cattle and collection of minor forest produce in these declared areas. Minor forest produce in these declared areas. So if they cannot take their cattle nor collect any minor forest produce like vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, or maybe honey, lac, wax, resin, gums, dyes, etc. from these areas. So if they actually get into that, the forest administration will punish them. So that is what it meant with respect to Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Next, in 1976, a National Committee on Agriculture and Tribal Rights was constituted. National Committee on Agriculture and Tribal Rights was constituted, which suggested a drastic reduction in concessions and privileges, given to the tribal people. Based on these recommendations, through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, 1976, based on these recommendations, through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976, forests were brought under concurrent list. In 1980, National Committee on Review of Rights and Concessions was constituted. Concessions were constituted, which suggested that minor forest produce be collected by the government and should be distributed to tribal people through departmental stores, through departmental stores, through departmental stores established outside the forest area. Established outside the forest area. It also suggested the forest rights and concessions be restricted to only 8 kilometers. Forest rights and concessions be restricted to only within 8 kilometers radius, within 8 kilometers radius of the forest. So those who are living outside 8 kilometers are not entitled for any rights and concessions. That is what this means. Next, in 1982, B.K. Roy Burman Committee, in 1982, B.K. Roy Burman Committee was constituted which expressed its regret, on the little importance given to the rights of the people on forests. Rights of the people on forest. It suggested that ecological security, food security, fodder and fuel security, should form the backbone of forest administration. Should form the backbone of forest administration. You get my point. Next part. Based on the recommendations of B.K. Roy Burman Committee, New National Forest Policy 1988. New National Forest Policy 1988 came into existence. It is the first pro-tribal forest policy It is also known as Environment People Policy. Environment People Policy. Environment People Policy or Environment Population Policy. This policy essentially hooks policy essentially hooks some important features which include first one, number one, reduce illegal cutting, reduce illegal cutting and exploitation of forest, reduce illegal cutting and exploitation of forest. Number two, special attention to be made for protection, regeneration, and optimum utilization of forest resources. Optimum utilization of forest resources. Number three, family oriented programs and schemes. Family oriented programs and schemes for tribal welfare. Number four, integrated area development programs. To meet the economic needs of tribal people. To meet the economic needs of tribal people. The integrated area development programs are a super hit in most of the tribal areas because they aim to comprehensively address the needs of tribal people, including economy, education, health, infrastructure, everything. That we'll see again later detailedly. But these are the essential features of this new national forest policy. So it is better than the earlier ones. But even this policy did not recognize or entitle the rights legally to the tribal people, which was done by this Forest Rights Act. You get my point. So please write. Next one. A landmark legislation in forest administration was passed on 18th December 2006. Known as recognition of in brackets you write scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers Forest Rights Act. This act aims to address the historical injustice and legally entitles the rights of tribal people on their land and forest. This is the first time after independence that the government officially
After independence,
this is the first time after independence that the government officially recognizes entitles the rights of tribal people. Entitles the rights of tribal people. Eligibility, put the side heading eligibility. Primarily residing in the forest areas and are dependent on forest produce for their livelihood. Primarily residing in forest areas and are dependent on forest produce for their livelihood. The claimant should be a member of the claimant should be a member of a scheduled tribe of that area or should be residing in that area for at least 75 years or should be residing in that area for at least 75 years. So they should be a member of a scheduled tribe of that particular area or should be residing in that particular area for at least 75 years. So this is the eligibility for the claim. Rights, put the side heading rights. Four hectares or 10 acres of land is provided to eligible individuals / families, individuals and families who are entitled for legal documents and can cultivate in the allotted land. This land cannot be sold nor transferable. This land cannot be sold nor transferable. They are also entitled to collect minor forest produce, and these tribal people should protect and conserve forest resources or forests. Should protect and conserve forests. In case of eviction or displacement, due to various developmental activities, proper rehabilitation, they are entitled for proper rehabilitation and resettlement. Next one, process of recognition of rights. Process of recognition of rights. According to section 6 of this act,
Sir, please slow.
process of recognition of rights, according to section 6 of this act, Grama Sabha passes a resolution on whom to be given rights, on whom to be given rights, and to which area or place, and to which area or place. This resolution is then passed to Taluka, and then to Taluk, Mandal, Taluka, and then finally to the district. The district level committee finally approves or rejects the claims. This district level committee also hears the appeals. So this is the thing. From Gram Sabha, after Gram Sabha takes a resolution, then sends to Taluka, then Taluka to district, who most probably will give, and sometimes they reject. If they reject, they will also hear the appeal. So this is the process of recovery. Put the side heading grey areas or challenges. Grey areas or challenges. Ten acres or 4 hectares of land is very less in comparison to 10 acres or 4 hectares of land is very less in comparison to their traditional rights. So that land allotted is definitely less in comparison to their traditional rights. Earlier they were having access to, like, not a defined one, but a very large area. You get my point. Next, the Act does not specify any time limit within which the Act does not specify any time limit within which the rights have to be recognized. Within which the rights have to be recognized. The Act also does not specify the issue of land already transferred to, does not specify the land that was already transferred to non-tribal people. The Act also does not specify any provisions for already displaced. The Act also does not specify any provisions for already displaced, already project induced displaced tribals, already project induced displaced tribals. Next, certain challenges in implementing this act include non-responsive attitude of bureaucrats. Non-responsive attitude of bureaucrats. You all very much know it. The process of recognition of rights is intense. The process of recognition of rights is intense and is very slow. Next, lack of documentary evidence delays recognition of rights. Next, the issue of community forest resources. The issue of community forest resources or common property resources common property resources is not suitably addressed. So these are the things. In other things, there are other areas, like in some places they have given the land which is unfit for cultivation. In some places they have given the land but did not give the documents. Sometimes they gave the documents but did not give them the land. So there are other challenges too, but these are the major ones. So this is about the history of forest administration, various acts and policies. Schemes, plans, programs that we will see in 9.1 under a separate topic. So this is related to administration, acts and policies. Yes.